Today on Context, two extraordinary stories about the glory of Niagara Falls. One an accident, the other a deliberate challenge. Roger Woodward on why he thanks God for his survival after accidentally going over the falls at age 7. Nick Wallenda explains why his tightrope walk across Niagara is an act of Christian faith. I'm Lorna Duick. You're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. He's the king of the high wire and will soon cross international borders, literally. A seventh-generation circus performer, Nick Wallenda got special permission to walk 1,800 feet across Niagara Falls on a tightrope this summer. He'll be the first to do it in over a century. So why did Nick Wallenda fight so hard to risk his life for our entertainment at Niagara? Let's put it in context. Nick Wallenda now joins me from Sarasota, Florida. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
This is the first sanctioned high wire crossing of Niagara Falls since Charles Blondin did it in 1859. Describe how this came to be for you.
You know, it's been a dream of mine for a long time. I've been walking a wire since I was 2 years old, and my family history dates back to the 1780s. 7 generations, and I have 3 children, which make it 8 generations. All 3 of them already walk the wire, so it really is a lifestyle for us. But this actual event started in my mind back when I was about 6 years old. My parents were performing in Buffalo, New York on a shrine circus. And they brought us down to the falls to view them, me and my sister, and we saw them, and I remember thinking, how cool would it be to walk from one side to the other on a tightrope? Of course, at that point, I didn't really know the history of tightrope walking there at the falls. But I remember thinking, I want to be the first person in the world to actually walk directly over the falls. Well, little did I know at that point that there were 13 wire walkers that actually traversed the gorge about a mile downstream from the falls, but not one of them actually crossed directly over the edge of the falls. So it's very exciting to be at this point where I do have permission from both countries to walk directly over and be the first person in the world to walk directly over Niagara Falls.
How did you get permission?
You know, through God's grace more than anything. It was definitely a tedious process. It began on the U.S. side. We met with a U.S. senator over there named Senator Maziarz, and he said, you know, we could really use a boost like this to our area. So he believed in it, and he wrote a bill that actually went through the Senate with overwhelming favor, 65-0, all in favor. It went through the Assembly at a 164-1. All in favor except for one. So overwhelming support through the government. And as we all know, to get the government to agree on anything is hard to do. So that alone showed that God's favor was on this to me. And then at that point, it was up to Governor Cuomo whether he wanted to call for that bill or not. And he ended up calling for it. And he had 12 days to sign it. He did sign it into effect. And it did become law on September 23rd of last year, 2011.
Well, Nick, Canada initially declined your request. We sent Context Santa Choi to ask the Niagara Parks Commissioner why they changed their minds.
What made you say yes to this?
So the decision was made by the entire group of commissioners. It's a board of 10 people, and everyone weighed up the economic impact benefits of such a wire walk over the falls. And in the end, it was decided that we should honor the history of Niagara Falls, that at one time there was stunting at the falls, and in this case we were going to, once in a generation, repeat the effort.
So what made you decide once in a generation?
Just the fact that we know the Niagara Parks Commission was initially established to eliminate stunting and carnival atmosphere around the falls. It was meant to secure a very private, green area where people could come and just reflect and meditate and relax from a week of hard work in the city. That was the original intent of the Niagara Parks. So we have cycling trails, walking trails, places where you can just relax. And it was felt that the carnival atmosphere didn't belong here. So we thought, well, if we limit it to once in a generation, we're still paying tribute to the history of the falls, the fact that it was part of the original reason why the Niagara Parks was created, but it wasn't making it a regular occurrence.
So, Nick, you say all of those doors opening, just like we heard from Niagara Parks, all of that relates to God's grace. Why would God want you to tightrope walk across Niagara?
You know, I hope that what I do is very encouraging to others. You know, God's grace is powerful and strong, and questions like this come up often. I've done media interviews around the world, and you know, I've known since I was a child that God was going to put me on a platform and use me to bring people to His kingdom. And I knew that all along, and God, you know, He told me that when I was about 13 years old. He said two things. He said, I'm going to bless you beyond belief, and I'm going to use you to bring people to the kingdom. So I knew that that was coming. I was raised in a Christian household and was always ready for it. I just didn't know in what capacity it was going to be.
What spiritual impulse do you hope awakens within people as they watch you walk, Nick?
You know, I've always been very, very much a strong believer on we live by example. And I think the world needs a new Evel Knievel or a superhero, but one that walks in the light, in the shadow of the Almighty. And, you know, I believe that that's what it is. That's what it's about. We have this persona, or the general public has this persona of a Christian as being this person who thinks they're holier than thou and that they're better than everyone else. And I've always been very much against that. I'm a real person just like everyone else, although Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I know that He's died on the cross for my sins, and I've accepted Him in my heart. And other than that, there's no difference between me and anyone else.
This is a performing art for you, Nick, but the bottom line is the public perceives it as entertainment. Aren't you putting your life at risk for this?
People think that, but I've trained my entire life for this. And, you know, there's certain protocols that we have and a certain safety procedure. It's actually a lot safer than most would think. You know, when I say that, a lot of people say, well, look at your family history. You've lost several family members doing what you do. Well, we've also learned a lot from losing those family members. And, you know, the one that sets in my mind the strongest is my great-grandfather was walking between two buildings in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1978, and he fell and lost his life. Well, he happened to be 73 years old, and if there's one thing we've learned is that although we love what we do and we have passion for what we do, just like a golfer who loves golf, there's a time where we have to retire and we have to put down the balancing pole and pass it on to the next generation. My great-grandfather chose to end his life that way. I mean, he often said, from what I've been told, I unfortunately died a year before I was born, that was how he wanted to go. Well, I choose to die a normal life. So what I do, though, yes, there is risk in it, but isn't there risk in crossing the street? How many people a day get killed in car accidents? So are you not going to get in a car anymore? You know, that's part of life. That's part of what we do.
What are you doing to minimize the risks of this act? Tell me about your crew.
There's probably over 250 people involved with this project. We've got several of those on staff right now working out the details themselves. There is a helicopter involved. It's used in many capacities. The first is actually stringing a rope from one side of the gorge to the other, which then goes through a series of machines, and then it drags a cable back and forth until we get to the right size. That helicopter is also on standby for my safety. I'm in constant communication during my entire walk with my safety coordinator as well as my father. If there's anything wrong or if I feel like something's not right, I would immediately sit down on the wire. I have a clip where I can clip into the wire, and that helicopter will swing in. I'll hook into the helicopter and be flown away to safety. So that's another aspect of the safety. And again, technology has been a huge advancement and in our favor for sure to make what we do even that much more safe.
Well, thank you very much, Nick Wallenda, and all the best.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your support.
Well, now it's time to find out what you think. Are you interested in seeing Nick Wallenda walk across Niagara Falls? Send us your answer by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter, or leave us a video message on our website. We'd like you to be part of the conversation. Our studio audience is taking a live vote, and I'll have those results when we come back. And when we return, award-winning filmmaker Christopher Bissett on his documentary about Niagara Falls. Plus, Roger Woodward, who survived plunging through the falls as a 7-year-old boy.